Right, welcome everyone to the second meeting of the working group. We had one prior to getting it all feathered up by the last town council meeting. We've got a number of items on the agenda. I believe that Peter Green is probably on his way, he may be a bit delayed, so I won't take apologies for absence at the moment. The first item we've got on the agenda is to decide if we have a chair, and if not, to appoint a chair. We informally did so, but we couldn't take it formally. Is it the same Lance Corbett, or do you want to change Lance Corbett?
Can I nominate you?
I'll second.
I can't vote for myself on the chair. Oh, okay, thank you very much. Right, thank you. Right, we have welcome to Christian. We're doing the usual recording. We haven't got any members of the public in attendance with the exception of Christine. Formally, I'd like to say, Christine, if you believe you have a particular point of great relevance to us, please put your hand up and ask us, and we will undoubtedly listen to you. Because you've been at so many council meetings, and I think you know some of the regulations backwards, that we will certainly welcome your input.
Thank you.
Okay? Make yourself comfortable, please.
Can I make one point of order?
Yes.
I'm not sure whether I've actually yet been officially appointed to this working group, because you at the council
Well, we
meeting.
had a...
Since then, I've said yes, I would like to participate.
Yes.
But do I need to be
May
appointed by the
I nominate
appointed by the council?
Peter as the additional councillor?
For me, even me.
I mean, I'm entitled to attend.
Nick.
I believe that Councillor Gray was on the list which went on the document full council last time.
You're right.
So they sold it through history.
Okay, I just wanted to check. Because I'm not an integrator.
Oh,
No,
we welcome your contribution.
Yeah, the group was
Because I
formed.
mean, I can attend, but if I'm not a member, I can't vote. But if I am, then I can vote.
We formed the group, your name was then added, and that went back to the town council, even though it got endorsed. So you're in.
You're with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Can I just make one suggestion, folks? This is a small meeting, it's an informal working group. Unless members feel otherwise, I think we should be on very informal terms. I'm happy not to use the term councillor unless you feel it's really important, and just use first name terms, but I'll be guided by the meeting.
I agree with you.
I'm happy with that.
Happy to do whatever he wants.
Okay, thank you. Right, we had an agenda, and I think the first thing on that agenda was specifically to take note anything that had come from the town council meeting where we put our proposals. The impression I got, without having seen any minutes yet, is that the council were happy to allow us to progress along the lines of drawing up a new, completely new constitution rather than changing bits and pieces. Is that everyone's understanding?
That's right, and I think also as a supplement to that, Ian, was the principle of looking towards having a single document was also
Yes.
accepted. So I think that's our goal, is to bring multiple documents into a single document in a way that actually not just us as council understand, but also anybody who picks it up can understand.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think we've had two sets of papers have come from various members, and both of them I think are very useful in that they have a core, and then they have appendices or addenda or whatever, chapters, whatever you care to call them, and I personally think that's an extremely good approach.
Yeah.
Everyone content with that sort of way? We haven't sorted out which ones they are yet. Okay. Any additional points that came from the council meeting, or even the open meeting, that we might want to specifically raise? I have two or three, but I'll wait till others.
Just one point. There was a difference in wording between the terms of reference, which went to council, and the note of the last meeting about the role of the town clerk. I do think it's important that the town clerk has the opportunity to comment at each stage of the procedure rather than just being given the final product, as it were. Because I think it's important that we have that input along the way, rather than firstly giving him or a huge wad of paper to look through at the last minute.
Yeah, agreed.
What do you think the best way of doing that is? If we send her copies of the notes of each meetings as soon as possible for her to comment on with detail, or how do you think it might be the best way to evolve, and then ask her for comments? We have said specifically that we would certainly invite her at a later stage.
Yeah.
But I take your point that you don't want a huge.
Yes. So my view would be is to give, because it's always difficult to understand the depth of conversation and why we might end up at a point, is if we share, for example, iterations of the product itself is a key thing, because you'd want another pair of eyes from her experience to look at it, and then just give maybe one or two key points of things that have taken us to that point. So for example, we've got two proposals here, Ian.
Yes.
Just serving those up. You know, if you pick it up cold, you might think, well, why have I got this? Just giving a little bit of context around it, in my point of view, would be the best way to handle it.
And there is no constraint that anyone knows of that prevents us from doing that. At the moment, they're purely work in progress.
Yeah.
That's no problem, no constraints.
No, absolutely no at all, no. And we should invite her whenever possible to attend our meetings.
So maybe we factor that into the next meeting.
Okay. Right.
Sorry, him.
Martin.
Sorry. Sorry, I think
It is still an interim town clerk today.
Thank you, folks. Let us leave it as the town clerk.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That's fine. Additional points, Martin. If there were any additional points that struck you at the two meetings that have been held, the open meeting we had with all the members of the public and the standard town council meeting.
No, I don't think so. There was general willingness, I think, to go along with the approach that we proposed, and I think people are just hoping that the end result will be accessible in almost every way.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't think so, no.
So I just one comment, Ian, and this may be for the detail of the review itself, but I just wanted to put down a marker around, I think we've got a real opportunity here to up the game of the council in terms of particularly how it engages with residents. So I have some concerns about if you just adopt standing orders as they stand, you just reinforce, for me, some of the bad behaviours around engagement outlets. What I mean by that is that you have deadlines that are set in the standing orders about you must do certain things by a certain date. Actually, from a resident's perspective, that isn't always conducive to getting the best input from them. So, for example, we will call this meeting and we probably will talk about when's the 3 days, if we factor that in, how soon can we meet? But actually, in other meetings, more important probably committees, etc., if you want to get the maximum input from residents, is give them time, give them breathing space. So my view is wherever possible in this document we come to review, is look at best practice rather than minimum levels. So there are minimum levels which have to be stated because they're legal requirements, but if we can wrap around some best practices as well, that would be my suggestion.
And one best practice in that regard is that Saturdays, legally they're classed as a working day, but best practice is that they are not a working day. So in terms of counting the number of days
just giving residents a couple of days to know about meeting, to find that there is a meeting, to know about it, and then to think, actually I'm interested. It's a really tight window. So best practice surely should be thinking, well actually we know we need another meeting, let's put it in the calendar rather than squeeze it in to just keep us driving forward.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's just
Okay, can I come back to working day later?
Just very quickly, the other thing with regard to resident participation is the window of time during which they can apply to speak, because from when the agenda is issued, they should be able to speak to items on the agenda,
yes.
but actually that window from when it's issued to the cut-off
Yeah.
is actually variable, I have noticed,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's incredibly short, and people are just not going to have time to get something
No.
together
That's
and notify.
Exactly my point, Christina. And actually, sometimes the Friday before the meeting given actually sometimes precludes people being able to feed in their questions,
It will
I think, in
do.
advance. So there's something there.
No, that is definitely something that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
The question about public participation.
Yeah.
When do they have to inform the council?
Yeah.
Why do they have to inform the council in advance? Why can it not be done on the day of the meeting, which lots of councils do? They say, make yourself known to the clerk before the start of the meeting and you can speak.
And taking ownership, a council saying, I've heard what you've said, or the council says, we've heard what you've said, can this councillor go away and investigate if that's what's needed? So it's all about engagement.
And there is confusion in the current documents about that already, about because there's the officially notify the town clerk versus ask the town clerk on the evening versus even ask the chair on the evening. And I understand that there's at least one document that says you can do that, whereas on other occasions people say, oh no, it had to be in writing to the town clerk by the cut-off. So there is confusion between documents.
Well, all of that will
Clean that up.
come
Well,
out of our
yeah, I mean, firstly, I do think the council needs the time and the ability to say, yes, that's fine. I mean, the grey areas to me are, if you have a lot of people asking to speak, the chair may need to look at the rest of the agenda because it could take a long time. We have had occasions here when the participation of public has been lengthy. It's always, in my view, been valuable. It amazes me how well people speak when they come before council. Most of them are well prepared. They come with a document that they distribute. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
The main problem I have in this area is that so often in the past the chair has nodded and said thank you and nothing happens.
So that will
And I
change.
think it's a matter, as I said before, it's a matter of common courtesy. It's not even, that it should be in the procedure. It's a matter of common courtesy that they have some kind of response, even if the response is, I'm sorry, that we can't do that for you. You need to talk to X, Y, and Z or whatever. But at least that we should give people some.
Yeah, but based on.
Christina's trying to come in. Can I cut across you, please?
Well, actually, that is already somewhere in at least one of the documents, is that, yes, they can give a response. So I don't know why there's some confusion, that some chairs think that a response is not permitted, whereas actually the documents do say that a response
we'll
is.
make it very clear.
That will be made very clear when we come to
I think it's hidden under custom and practice and protocol.
Yes.
I asked about protocol and I still haven't had an answer. It's another matter. Okay, thank you, Christina. Right, so yes. Other points?
I've got other things, again, I want to just challenge a little bit about doing the minimum versus doing what I think is best. So I won't go through those now, but I will feed them in as we go through the project itself.
I mean, I've got a few. The first one, of course, I mean, as some of you know, I've been banging the drum about public participation for well over a year. You and I have worked quite a bit on that, and I think I would endorse everything that's been said. We treat people incredibly rudely. We ignore them, and quite a lot of council meetings, I didn't even get thanked for speaking. That was a state, appalling state we were in, and that has to stop immediately. I do think there's also we need a better method of timing. because this
Yes.
thing is just so rude. So that's one issue I've got. I have a question here. We get speakers from DDC and KCC in the form of the three councillors. I really do think we should have a protocol that says, we can ask questions of them, both on what they have said,
Yes.
and secondly, what they haven't said.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need DD, and I'm told there's a protocol which says we don't do it, and I have asked for that.
Yeah.
We'll see if it arrives. Okay, so we're all happy that needs to be included somewhere. Okay.
You're probably going to go through my list of.
Well, great minds think alike. You know the other bit of it. Personally, I find it bizarre that we're asked to stand to speak.
Yes.
I think that should be abandoned with
Or
immediate effect.
optional, if somebody prefers.
Members of the public have actually said to me they like to see councillors' faces. Councillors have got their back to the public, they can't. If you're sitting, they won't know who's speaking some of the time. But also, they would like to see faces. Now, a resolution was passed, I think, around about February, March of last year, that the U-shape would be open to the public. That resolution has never been rescinded, but somehow or other the practice has gone the other way. Now, I have members of the public that watch my live stream while they are sitting in that chair because
Just
they
to
want
see.
to see the councillor's face.
That's fair enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I quite agree. I mean, the absurdity of us sitting with our backs to the
Yes.
member of the public has got to go. It did go, and one of the first things we did February when we got elected
Yeah.
was get a resolution through that it should
okay.
be turned round, right?
Well-
And we held
So this would
we
be
held
open
meetings
here.
then in the main hall
Yeah.
rather than here. But then that was for 6 months. After 6 months, we dribbled back into here again, and this format was arranged, and there was no.
But
way
Nick,
of-
even that, I would suggest, even using this room, it's not beyond the width of
to-
man
exactly.
to actually move a couple of tables and face that way. Because I think the standing up is archaic in my personal view, and it doesn't resolve the issue, because if I stand up here, somebody will just see the back of my head a little bit higher than others.
Yeah.
So I think it's about engaging with residents, and that the best way to do that is through eye contact.
Face-to-face contact. Yeah.
I in council where I was previously, we didn't have this rule that you should stand, although it is in the template from Calc.
It's in the
It says that the chair may, at the chair's discretion, allow people, for instance, who have a disability to remain seated. But standing is the general rule. We never stuck to that. And I must say, when I came here at first, I found it odd to have to stand, but I got used to it.
Yes, I think you get used to it, Martin, that's right.
And I think yes, it is easier in terms of identifying who is speaking. I foolishly, sorry Nick, because it was at your request, I foolishly once agreed to take the minutes of the meeting. I had exactly this problem because I was sitting where Emma did, and if somebody sitting further down the road was speaking, I couldn't tell who it was.
Can I ask, thanks, I didn't realise Calc had suggested standing. What does NALC say?
The NELC standing model standing orders say stand, but the mayor can allow people with disabilities.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I remember seeing that for members of the public. I meant for council. Does NALC suggest standing?
Yes.
Councillor?
Yes.
All I would say is having in preparation for these meetings, I've looked at a number of councils online. I've also looked at a number of standing orders that are available via the internet. And to be honest, it veers more towards not standing as opposed to standing. So not every.
I'm not used to standing in court you stand
Yeah,
up.
of course.
All my life, obviously not. I don't.
We're
That's
not the same.
I don't think we want to do it.
No, I don't think so.
really don't.
Christina?
With regard to the NELT template standing orders, there are sections that have statutory
Yes, requirements.
backing.
Yeah.
So you've got the coloured docs
Yes.
Yeah.
system.
Yes, it's a
And
non-statutory.
I very much want to
requirement.
keep the coloured dot
Well, we
system.
have, yes, we should, we must do, yeah.
Because that actually clarifies that
Yeah.
what is a statutory obligation.
We have to do
And
that.
everything else is flexible, really,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
But thank you for that. It's not
And
statutory.
sorry, quickly, while we're on the question of the council meeting, to my mind, there is still a problem in meeting in this room because of access for disability.
True.
There is no disability access to get to this room.
Not
I know
unless
they
you.
try to say, oh well, we can try and get permission from the people hiring the jury room. We can do this. We can do that. It actually doesn't abide by the law.
Okay.
You know, the law is there has to be open access to people with disabilities.
Agree.
People with disabilities cannot get into this room.
Okay.
So, you know, should we hold, I don't think, I know everyone says, oh, it's the council chamber, you've got to hold meetings. Why have they got to be held here? We held them in the main hall. For the first 6 months we were here, and they were fine. And we had lots and lots of public
The
attendance.
acoustics are dreadful.
I
And the
was going to
acoustics
the
were
next
awful, I agree.
Christine, can we ask me from your viewpoint, did having meetings in the large room give you additional technical problems or not?
Well, the sound quality
The
is
sound-
worse.
the sound is a
Is-
problem.
there's a degree of echo out there in the large hall.
But even just peeking round the corner, I can see a microphone.
Well,
There's another.
we have
going
had
off
many
there.
discussions about microphones. What I think you can probably see is the loop microphone
Yeah,
system,
okay.
which
It's a
doesn't
It's a bit prohibitive.
only the hearing aids. I have asked about microphones, and actually what I think the best thing would be to have the
Yeah.
conference mics,
Yeah.
where you might have just 3 on the tables or
Yeah.
perhaps 4, depending on how the
But
tables are
I do
arranged.
think the question about disability access has got to be resolved.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it hasn't been resolved yet. All sorts of suggestions have been put forward. But
Right.
that's something we're going to have to accept.
So let's not lose that.
I've got a note of all of these points.
Yeah.
Specifically, we are questions about why do we need to inform them in advance? Maybe information the council needs to be told on the day by that speaker. We need a clear process. We would like some response from the council, but accept the point that there may not be the need to respond because it might be a budgetary thing or it might be a statutory thing. Okay, and the courtesy of the way we respond. We felt that we should have the ability to question DDC and KCC speakers,
Yep.
and I think that would apply to any speaker
Yes.
that we
Yeah.
would invite,
Yes.
and that would include members of the public.
We might want to be specific about why we would question, so it might be about points of clarification specifically for residents. I think the opportunity for a resident to speak is an important one, but equally it needs to be a comfortable experience
Yes,
for
yes,
them.
but so if I mark it something about restraint
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just come back to this issue of the point at which people have to notify the council they wish to speak, and the matter they wish to speak on.
Yes.
I mean, what you want to avoid is a busload of people all wanting to speak on the same thing and
Yes.
all arriving at the beginning of the
Unexpected.
meeting.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we, as I say, we have some time and some discretion to say,
So can I
we can't have 3
Yeah.
people speaking
Can
on
I
the same
suggest
subject.
I think it's quite a hot topic,
It is.
so should we pick that up when we get to that point
Yes.
in the document?
Okay.
Because there is
Construct.
provision in my proposed standing order,
Yes,
whereby the mayor if there is a group of people who want to speak,
take
the
one
mayor
person.
can say, well, one of you has got to speak
Yeah.
on behalf
Okay.
of that lot. Things like that.
Yes, I think
Yes.
we need to give it the right focus, so let's pull it apart at that point when we get to
Yeah.
the document.
The usual points of discussion on this are, is it only residents And
Yeah.
is it only items on the agenda?
Yeah.
I think we'll
I
cover
believe
those.
it's legally, it's only residents. I believe
Well-
legally, apart from the councillors who've got a right to
Should we
speak.
just look at it when we get to that point?
Yeah.
Because-
Okay, so it needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
It needs to be clarified. This standing up, ideally we'd want a different layout, and we take a note of the comment about people can't see.
Yeah.
So if you can change the seating. It's not statutory to stand, but two groups do it, but equally the evidence is a lot of councils do not
Exactly.
do it anymore. Problems of disabled access to this room in particular, is if there's a meeting on their issue about microphones. I think I have two other quick issues, if I may raise them. One is, we on the start of this, I'm not sure what constitutes a working party and how it differs from a subcommittee. I think we need clarity on both of those.
Oh,
Christina.
it's okay.
It's the working group terms of reference document is
Yeah,
what you
which
need
no
for
one
that.
told me about.
Ah. I don't have a copy with me.
No, I'm
I
not,
could-
not,
I
not,
don't
not,
have a copy with me either, but,
it shows you how well we really know about it.
yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yes,
It may be
the difference is,
that our acting town clerk doesn't know about it either.
I suspect that's very true.
Because you're thinking,
I think the differences are numbers of councillors, powers of co-option, duration of mandate.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, working parties after a fixed
Yeah,
period. of time,
maximum of 6 months.
Subcommittees
Yeah.
exist.
Okay,
Right.
that's excellent.
Right.
The membership of working groups also, I think it's a maximum of 5 councillors,
Yeah.
4 co-optees. I'm just talking off the top of my
Yeah, I
head
think-
here, I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah.
4 co-optees, the quorum is 3, unless only, which can include a co-optee. So that could be 2 councillors and a co-optee. But it can be 2 if there are only 2 councillors, if it's a working group of only 2
Ah.
councillors, which is also possible.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
that is the absolute
All
minimum.
right,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
We don't
And
say that at the moment, but we should say that.
we should make it a lot clearer. And this is more of a technical issue. That I could put. Is that a fire alarm?
It's the bell. It's the clock. Chimes of the clock.
Sounds like an
Yeah.
electric bell.
No,
Oh,
you're
it's
right.
finished.
It's okay. It's finished.
It's finished. Health and safety, mate. Health and safety. What format do we want to use to record anything? I use Word. Do you all use Word?
I use Word.
And I think anything to track changes.
Yes.
But
So we've got devices that have got Word installed on them, so we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can use Word. Okay.
And we've all got, have you got your council iPads here?
No,
Neither of you.
I have.
You have.
I haven't, and let's see.
Yes.
I haven't.
Okay, I've set a couple of questions or challenges of the town clerk to try and unpick what's preventing you have yours.
Right. Okay. I think if that covered everything that was in the first item, which was bits coming off the meeting.
Excellent.
Are you in agreement?
Yes.
I'm very worried about that.
Yes.
Right. Next item then I think is to discuss, actually formally I ought to note that Peter Green has not been able to attend.
Yes.
Okay.
I've not had a message from him, so I would. No, I don't.
Okay. Fine. Okay, let's do that. I must be crazy setting stuff up as well.
You do a fantastic job, Ian, so carry on.
Christina,
I've got the quorum for working groups on my phone if you want to see it.
thank you.
I've
No,
got the whole.
No, thank you. We're
No.
we are where we are at the moment. I will go and look through my documents at some stage, or it must be on the freedom of information bit.
No, it isn't.
No,
Not
it
yet.
isn't. No, it
It was going to be. I'll just read a couple of points out here. So, constitution of working groups. The maximum number for a working group is 9. Working groups should consist of a minimum of 2 councillors and a maximum of 5 councillors. All working groups will have the option up to a maximum of 4. All working groups will have the option to co-opt up to a maximum of 4 non-councillors. These co-optees can be the 2 DDC councillors and the single KCC councillor and or other Sandwich residents with expertise and experience particularly appropriate to the task of the working group. Where appropriate, the proper officer and the responsible finance officer can be invited to meetings to advise. They will not count towards the maximum number of members of a working group. Voting and quorum of working groups. The quorum of a working group will be 3, of which at least 2 must be town councillors. The one exception to this rule is where a working group consists of only 2 town councillors. In this case, and in this case only, the quorum will be 2. And then everything else is as normal.
Thank you. Then Christina. Peter, welcome.
I'm sorry I'm late. I had the time at 10:30 originally. I didn't read the agenda clearly enough.
Apologies from Peter, and you walked in the door. Okay, thank you. Peter, just to recap, we've just done, I've been nominated as chair again. I'll take some notes. The critical things we've talked about are things coming from the council meeting. Right, so we want to have much better resident engagements. So we've been through deadlines for documents and meetings so residents can see them in plenty of time. We did discuss a little bit that we need to have clarity about public participation and when members of the public have to inform the council that they wish to speak, and consensus seems to be on the day, but we ought to have some clarity if a large number of people all want to speak. We feel that we should have the right to question DDC and KCC speakers and be able to question members of the public who wish to speak, but that's obviously much more restrained thing because for some people just even standing up and speaking may be a bit of a challenge. Question about whether we need to stand at meetings. Christine has made the point that with our backs to them, under this present arrangement, it may be more important than perhaps some of us had thought. But if the layout was changed, we are questioning. Issues about disabled access, issues about the microphones. I just asked about the clarity of the subcommittees and working parties, and Christina was providing that information when you arrived. And to check that we're all happy using Word and we can use track changes.
Yeah.
And we've also said that we would perhaps send a copy of the notes of this meeting, and I call them notes rather than minutes because it's fairly informed, to the town clerk on a regular basis, so that the town clerk is not going to be surprised by anything coming out and perhaps can comment where we're going completely off the rails.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary of where we are?
That's particularly important on the standing orders to ensure that we do have all the statutory elements in there correctly.
And we have Christina is a member of the public but also recording, so Christina's given us some valuable contributions as you saw when you came in. Okay?
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so I think the next thing was to take a view. We really, I think, got 3 proposals to consider as to which one it might be the best way forward. The first one was that the council did give us the authority to go away and do sort of a new model standing orders rather than trying to tinker around. And you had very kindly at just after the Zoom meeting sent us some work that you have been working on, some draft there, which I think is this document here, which goes into a lot of detail.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've all seen that. I circulated that again a couple of days ago. The second point was that you, I think I had come out with some suggestions on your Was this before or after the visit to Saint Emilio?
That was that was a consequence.
A consequence, a very good consequence. There's always something about Saint Emilio as a model, and I think there's some really excellent points in there. The third point was that Nick circulated a standing orders from one particular council, which is Frome, and it struck me, as I said in my note to you, I thought there's no contradiction between these, because both seem to have a core document, which is the standing orders and other statutory things that we have to be aware of, and then we can hang other bits on, call them appendices, addenda, or whatever we want, and it's much easier to change those instead of having to change the whole document. I think those are the three issues that we've got. Martin, did you want?
I was wondering to what extent we would annex other documents to it. I mean, we have a whole series of what are often called policies on all sorts of things about behaviour of staff, relations with employees, behaviour of councillors and so on.
Yeah.
But I don't. I would think that those are public documents which need, or for the most part, public documents which need to be in some sort of structure. So whether they would all be annexed to the main document or not, I've kind of got an open mind, but I tend to think yes.
Although wherever possible, it's about best practice. My personal view through my experiences, let's avoid wherever possible building a document that is light in terms of the main document and ends up with a vast amount of annexes. What we've agreed to in principle is that we want to produce a product that anybody can pick up, not just the councillors. A resident can pick up and can actually understand the story it tells.
Yes.
So as long as we keep that in mind, technically building a product is okay, but actually from a user perspective, let's make sure it's as best presented for everybody's use.
Yeah.
I agree to an extent.
Yeah.
I mean, the model which a number of councillors are adopting now is actually to have what they call a constitution,
Yes.
which is basically the standing orders, terms of reference,
Yeah.
and all the other documents, which the policy documents and all the rest. And if we look at a Frome Council, for instance, they have what they call their constitution, which has got, the problem is, dealing with any point, is you end up with 30 chapters or something, because it's got attached to it all the policies, the protocols, information like GDPR, and so on.
And I think it's back to
to my mind, the benefit is you've got everything in one document, which is what the council is. At the moment, we've got documents all over the place.
Yeah.
Some are on the website, some aren't. Some you have to get hard copies from the council if you want to see them.
Yeah.
Some they probably haven't even got hard copies. And it's just at the moment it's a complete mishmash. And nobody knows what the council is or does. The advantage of having only one document is it's all there. With Frome in their introduction, they set a list of them. They set a list of when they are to be reviewed, whether it's annually or biannually, and everybody knows where they are.
And I think I agree with you, Nick, and what I'm not saying is
it's an absolute indigestible document for members of the public to look at. Whether there is some way, having got that, we could extract just the really important bits, i.e. the standing order
into the main document, and
show
avoid
those as a separate.
and we just need to avoid the thing that Peter is in many ways addressing is what we don't end up with is contradictions. It's already been mentioned, contradictions in documents, so you can pick up one document and another and say actually they completely clash in terms of whatever the rule is, the order is.
Could I make a suggestion. We were asked specifically to review standing orders.
Yes.
I know.
We
That's
can't
what
put- we can't put
when I
the
mentioned
world
it,
rights.
As I said, this is like
Is it the
Topsy.
only
This
one?
is Topsy with a vengeance. But
Yeah.
I think if we do something like we review the critical standing orders
Yeah.
for us, but we take then the suggestion forward once we've got that, is to say, but we recommend that you do a variant of these two, whichever variant you have. Personally, I didn't find the throne one too intimidating
No.
because it's in chunks. It's very clearly. If I want to know about volunteers,
Yeah.
it's right, volunteers, page 26.
Yeah.
I can look at it. Personally, I wouldn't put it as page 26. I'd say annex, annex, annex,
Yes.
annex.
Yeah.
So you can change it without having to change
Yeah.
the whole blooming document.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, that's the way the railway rule book was written, and that was, had evolved over 150 years, and it works. That there's bits and pieces are there. But I remember our initial objective is to write standing orders, not everything else.
Focus on that.
Whether the council then decides it wants to continue with this working party or set up other working parties to address each one in detail, I think is up to the council.
Yeah.
And I would suggest we limit ourselves to the absolute essentials, which strike me as what are the statutory things, what are the things you want to know about behaviours, and what are the things that the council has to do, and things like timescales, calling of meetings, etc. That's what I suggest we concentrate on. Now, I am conscious of time. We didn't set an end time for this.
I'd have to leave at 11:30.
Yes, I'm going to suggest more than 2 hours. Anaesthetising our backsides is not going to be the best way forward, if that's agreeable to all.
Can I just say, in terms of this kind of breakdown structure or document breakdown structure or map, thank you for making the point about where we started off. And we were asked to review 2 or 3 documents and even get those to coordinate. I think there is a lot of merit in having a document structure and a document map, because there are lots of documents floating around, as Martin has said. For instance, the role that we were given on outside bodies, is the way we are organised and so forth. And so the benefit of this is that it sets documents into 4 different kind of sections and gives each of them a unique number. So we've got a structure to be able to pick up a document and say, that document would fit in here as D17. And so we've got a uniform map that we can offer to the council and to the, and can be used when you're structuring IT information and documents on the filing system and so forth. So I think there's a lot of merit in this. But yes, we're not out to conquer the world, but we need to be able to produce user-friendly documents that people can pick up and they can look at a table which says, what type of meeting is this? What notice do I need to give for the meeting? How frequently should we have those meetings? And we should use kind of tables and so forth to summarise things, but we shouldn't lose sight of the opportunity to bring things together into a structured manner, as opposed to just making another couple of documents that get thrown into that's what's happened. So I think there's an opportunity for us to actually do what we've been asked to do by the council, and at the same time lay the foundations in a structure for documentation, which isn't going to be an awful amount of work to lay out that foundation, so that all future documents can be pinned in an orderly and structured manner.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I supported what Ian said. I think we have to focus on the standing orders and get those done, and then maybe in the final report just suggest a wider structure and see if council are interested.
Okay, I'm happy to do note that. So we focus on standing orders, but we recommend at some stage that when we've done that, that they have a program to get everything into a format, which be it this one or be it that one, is.
Yeah.
I think there's merit in both.
Well, I think the Frome format fits directly.
Yeah,
I think it does.
It does.
I mean, the first thing
There's no difference really.
No, there was such overlap. It's just the terminology is slightly different, but that's fine. Okay, right. Can I just come back and ask one thing? Sorry, I forgot to mention it earlier. Is there the time limit to call a meeting? Is that a statutory thing? The 3 days, excluding Sundays and bank and publics.
And bank holidays,
Yes.
And that covers all bank and publics, not just the
All
religion.
bank.
All bank. I was incorrect in that. I said the town clerk. I thought it was just this religious one. Christine, do you want to say something?
There is a statutory difference between full council and committee and otherwise, but it would probably be best practice to go with the full council model, which is the maximum period. Just to eliminate confusion.
Okay.
So that's why I say let's have a table with all of the different types of meetings, whether it's an annual meeting, a statute, a full council meeting, an emergency council meeting, a committee meeting, a working group meeting, a residents meeting, and have the notice period set out, and we can put an asterisk or something to say that if this is a statutory requirement or minimum requirement, we just set them out on the table. It's easy.
I like the idea of an asterisk to point out where it's a statutory requirement.
Okay. Or bold, whichever.
Colour code, or whatever we choose.
Colour code.
The NALC template currently comes with colour-coded dots for things that apply to full council versus committee. Many people are issued with the standing orders in black and white, which completely destroys the objective. But
this is the problem that most people are given prints in monochrome. They're not, and so I think the problem with just colour coding, it's fine if you're in that, but if you've just been issued something or you just download it and you're a cheapskate like me and use that monochrome as much as you can.
One thing I mentioned, Peter, when you before you arrived was what we're talking here about is you have to do certain things by certain days for a best practice, and actually demonstrating that we're actually not just talking about our own internal business, is about expanding some best practice around that. So for example, if a meeting has a minimum number of days lead in, is actually the best practice is, ideally we might want to do it with a week's gap. Whatever we feel is sensible in terms of allowing residents to have the opportunity to participate. At the moment, the time scales of announcement and meeting are really tight, and it's preventing people even hearing about meetings before they happen, let alone having an opportunity to think about attending or ask some questions. So there's a best practice wrapper around all of this.
Well, we could put minimum statutory or best practice on the table, but in my mind, what I would like to see in the document is what the type of meetings are, and then to set the rules out before the meeting, blah, blah, blah. During the meeting, these rules apply. After the meeting, these rules apply, so that there is that logical sequence of things.
Okay.
I think, there are some things in the NALC guidelines that I think are quite straightforward, and we could adopt more or less en bloc. There are other things to do with the presentation of those issues that I think we could usefully look at. One of the things that you have to take on is, in an election year, things are done differently, and this is how it works in an election year. And that's all classic regulatory information. We have to abide by those, whether we want to express them or simply, I don't know.
So how do we start chewing this problem? Because there's a lot of talk about the principles, which is great, but at some point we need to actually get into the details.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Well, I think we probably need to start with possibly using, if we follow this sort of model, right, I think the first thing is you've quite rightly pointed out, it is statutory and other duties.
Yeah.
We really have to start with that. I don't think our present remit covers budget or council management and so on, but if we could do that, and then from that, I think statutory and other thing comes quickly into the difference between the different groups, which is the working party subcommittees and so on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, sorry, could I just say, so when I put this together, the scope is, what does the council have to do?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what that's about. B is all about, okay, we've got this to do, how are we going
How do
to
you set
organise
ourselves up?
ourselves? Who sets up a standing committee? You know, so those are us getting organised, you know, who's going to contract staff or whatever. And then C is saying, right, this is what we've got to do. These are the organisations that we've delegated the tasks to. So this is about what are we going to do, how we're going to organise ourselves, who's going to do it, and how are they going to do it? You know, how do you conduct yourselves in meeting? How do you go about the financial regulations and general orders? You know, how do we organise the IT? All this, you know, so these are all of the hows, these are all of the whos, and these are all of the whats.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So if we follow that, and I think have we all got a copy of this? I've got a copy somewhere in my notes. Right. Let's see.
Thanks.
I think I've sort of. Right.
I looked at it on the screen.
Right. Well, can I scribble on this?
Yeah, of course you can.
It strikes me then we have to do A1. That's our starting point.
Yep.
We then need to do, I think, most of B1, B2, B3, B4 for this particular working party.
Okay.
Please shout out if you think I'm...
Can I just go back to A1, so it's A1 but not A1.1 in terms of the standing orders, is that right?
Right, sorry, I just put A1.1 there
Yeah.
as an example.
Okay,
Because
that's fine.
if you look at, you know, the scope of what the council's got to do, it's got an unlimited number of things, whether it's to do with allotments or whether it's to do with, you know, setting the budget or whether it's to do with employing staff.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And sorry, and from our you know, point of view in Sandwich, you know, specific things like, you know, we've got to, you know, act as trustees on
Yes.
the Tollbridge Fund and the Maddox Fund and
the Monk's Wall?
and the Monk's Wall
I
and
was
stuff.
wondering if we needed to get into
I think
It's a
that's
bit of a
exactly what I'm
minefield.
thinking, Martin, as well. I think actually probably standing orders, again, when we get to the detail, there may be reference points we need to make around a number of activities like Maddox, like the Sandwich United Charities. There are roles that we have as standing order requirements that should be reflected, I think, in the documentation as well, which I can't see at the moment, or at least they're not obvious.
Yeah, well, you see, for me, that would be, you know, in terms of the structure and organisation, Jill circulated a table to us all of all of the different outside bodies and the number of people. So that's where a document that already exists just wants a number on it and slipping it
slot in.
into there so
Okay.
that we know where it is.
So to recap, we certainly have to do A1.
Yeah.
Right. We may also have to do A4 because specifically that we believe that these charities should be addressed separately. We have concerns about the arrangements for the town, the toll bridge of the Maddox. I think there's a resolution that we set up as a separate charity, and then the other. We have to do B1, B2, B3, B4,
Yep.
I think, as part of this working group.
Yeah.
We have to do, I suspect, C1, but the detail of the finance, planning, HR committee and Monk's Wall, I suspect, may be slightly beyond our remit at this stage.
Yep.
We may get asked to go away and do that as well. But we certainly need to do C1, and that also links into D1. And I would have thought at the moment that's really what we're tasked with doing. A1, possibly A4, B1 to B4, C1 and D1.
And sorry, a final comment on this. This was just meant to convey an idea. It's
No.
not necessarily the finalised proposal as the structure. You understand?
No, we accept that, but I think it's an extremely valuable document to work things.
Yeah, and I think what's really, because some of us have tried to find some documents recently, Peter, it's very difficult to find them.
Yeah.
I'm being very generous. We need a common document library that people can easily access, so where they start from the top and they know where to drill down. At the moment, we don't know where to drill down. It's more about where's the paperwork, let's open the folder and see if what you want is in there.
Yeah.
Christina?
Can I just say, from the perspective of members of the public and transparency and so on, when documents are issued to members attending meetings, if those documents aren't attachments to the agenda, then it's actually quite difficult for members of the public to follow what it is that members of the council are just talking about.
Yeah.
So when we talk about A's, B's, D's or whatever, or even the schedule of representatives on external bodies, we still haven't seen that. As members of the public, we still haven't seen that. So we are enthusiastically waiting for that, but it's difficult. And I would just ask that whenever possible, if there's documents that are going to be discussed in a meeting, if they could actually be attachments to the agenda, and then everybody, if they want to, are able to read them and follow.
Yeah.
Can I make a sub point to that? I think the ways in which agendas are often presented is not very helpful at all. One thing that irks me, and I didn't get this changed when I was chair at Westgate, is the use of the phrase "decision required," and it doesn't specify specifically what is the decision that's required. Usually, it just means there has to be a vote on this.
Yeah.
But I do think agendas could be much more precise, rather than simply mentioning a heading, is to say a bit more specifically what the...
I agree with you, Martin,
problem.
because one of the things that I said, that I had a few other things in my
Okay.
bag still to declare, was around the security markings of documents. So at the
Yes.
moment, when anybody writes a report for the meetings, actually it's down to them to decide how they might mark it up. And I've seen already, just from a couple of meetings, that we haven't got some very firm guidelines. Documents are all secure, but we need to have levels of security attached to them. So I've got standard markings that I wanted to feed in. That are very clear about how we as a group always recognise the documents' level of importance. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to clear that one up.
No, I quite agree, that's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
Like, if there are amendments to documents, it has to be marked. You never know in this council what version of what document you're looking at.
You've taken
Not
an online
updated,
version
you
control.
don't know who wrote them, you don't know when they were amended.
Yeah.
Documents are just
Yeah.
produced,
Yeah.
and it's impossible to know actually what you're looking at, or what's going
Or even
on.
if they exist.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And
then
I've been banging on about this,
Yeah.
as Christina knows, for 12 months now.
We both have.
and Nirvana, Nick, is those people that want to go on to the IT storage of documents can actually go in. I want version 1.0 of this document, and they can find it just from a document library and find it there.
Yeah.
That's Nirvana.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the time scale for are we talking geological?
Well, you get into huge documentum packages and stuff like that. You can get specialist software so that you can search the library and all things, and it becomes, you know, so this really is, you know, a mountain.
We have an
But
archive.
we've got to have a route map to get up the mountain.
Yeah.
Okay, we're digressing, but certainly this thing about documents, importance, security, order and version control are certainly things we perhaps would want. Okay.
I mean, for the record, I go along with what you picked out as being what we need to focus on in this.
Okay, are we all in broad agreement that these are...
I was just going to ask a question, the role of the town clerk, is that not also something that needs to be in standing orders or not? So that is a question in the sense I've seen it in different documents, but you haven't mentioned it as something that's a requirement. I know it's on there,
You've
but
got, yes.
just in terms of your listing and in terms of condensing it, you didn't mention that.
Okay, town clerk, well, a town clerk is more than job description,
Yes,
it's
it is.
responsibilities.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And role, responsibilities and role, okay. So what we could do is, we've got things to work on here. I'm going to suggest at the moment, we've been here for an hour, we have a very brief, what's called personal needs break. That's the railway term.
Reflection opportunity.
Comfort break.
Well, whatever you call it.
Comfort
Comfort break. And then we come back in a couple of minutes and then we can crack on for another hour. Is that going to be sensible, or do you want to keep?
With you, Martin, he said you've got to go at 11:30.
Well,
Yes, I have to go to 11:30 as well.
So do I?
Yes.
That's excellent.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break for a couple of minutes and then we can
Yes.
resume. Do you want to stop recording at this stage? Otherwise, we're going to have a very few minutes of just blank.
Tricky. If I stopped, it would then become a separate recording. I can't join the two together.
Okay.
So I don't know how you want to handle this.
Can you pause it?
No, there's
Well,
no.
as long as
Well, I
one
can
person's-
try.
I'll
Yeah. Are we going to share a copy, or have you got a copy, folks? Right, okay.
I've got it on my phone.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. That's the document there.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. Have you seen this, Martin?
yes, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Do you want to come around to this side and we can share it?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
You're okay.
I'll have a look at Peter's.
Okay. Right, folks, thanks for that. We'll resume formally, and we will. Suggestion is that we start working through the standing orders that Nick produced about a week or so ago, based on previous research you've done. Yeah, and we'll just go through that and see if this forms the basis.
I would say it is a draft. There are mistakes in there for you to spot.
Deliberate mistakes.
Yes. Okay. Is there any other quick way of doing this apart from just going through it line by line?
Best to go through it.
Right. Some of my, because I printed in draft mode rather than fine print mode.
Where
I'm
are
not-
you? Page.
Page
I haven't got page 4.
page 4, which is introduction, use of standing orders.
Yeah.
Right. Which ones are in bold? Because I've got 112 is in bold, and
That's the only one on
that's
that
the only
page.
one. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Right. Okay. That's in bold. Right. Do we want to just go through it like quickly line by line and see if there's any issues?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Okay. Smooth running.
Town.
Yeah.
Should be town, parish and community. Should we put town, parish and community level councils?
Yes, I suppose we probably should.
Right. This is the paint drying session, I'm afraid, Christina. This is the paint drying.
Yeah.
You've got a copy for me to look at.
Yeah.
Do we have,
I do
We
actually.
could really do with a projector, so we could
Yeah.
project things
Yeah.
up, or a TV, so that was,
I did actually ask the town clerk if we could have the large screen as you'd tried to have, and then she said, unfortunately, the problem is that because we all seem to use Macs, I know everything else here is PC based. But let's see if I can get something for you, Christine.
Oh, thank you.
Let's-
yes.
Right, here we go. Let's have a look in my folders, just a moment.
So as we go through it, I've already set this in track changes,
Great, that's great.
so that
that's
I
great.
can, you know, the first change being to insert town and 1.1, so if people,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
you-
be
you
kind
go to
enough to
full-
shout it
yeah.
up,
If yes, if you borrow that, it should be a full battery, so that should be fine. Okay. Right, so 1.1.1, smooth running. Yes. Chair, chair, committee chair. Happy with 1.1.1A to F? I think it's
rolls off the town clerk. Well,
wrong.
it's a roll, isn't it, off the town
Is it
clerk?
roll?
Well, should it be
Role
roll?
Roll.
and
Roles.
responsibilities? Or is it just role?
Role of the town clerk.
Roll.
Yeah.
Could I suggest role of the town clerk and or other, would it be and or other proper officer?
No.
No.
Well, no, I
just-
mean, the town clerk,
Is the proper
the
officer.
proper officer
Yeah.
is defined by law, it's a statutory term. in the
I see,
local
but
government.
when the town, I thought that some parts of the, could be delegated, for example, is that just purely convenience? We've used the finance officer as the proper officer in this town council in our, in our shortage of staff. That's the question, whether is there only one proper officer in a town council?
I think so.
Yes, I think there is.
That's the town clerk.
That's the
Yeah,
town
that's
clerk.
how-
If the town
clerk,
clerk
yeah.
delegates,
The proper officer.
delegate to the responsible finance officer certain
Yes.
things, that could
Yeah.
be, you know, that would
Yeah.
be documented elsewhere, sure.
It was my understanding that the RFO is also a proper officer, but limited in their scope. I mean, perhaps
think
I'm
you're right.
wrong,
I
but
think
that
you
was
are
my
right.
understanding.
Okay, maybe we need to come back. Let's
Yeah.
put a question about
Draft
whether,
question.
Oh,
DQ.
There's a whole section on proper officer later on.
right, okay, that's fine.
Saying the
Okay.
proper officer shall be known as a town clerk,
Right, okay, yes.
which is a bit.
113, that's fine, that's digital as well as paper. So we need to get copies of the standing orders, which we're working on. I'm not quite sure I understand 115.
sorry, can I just, the council's scheme of publication, you know, this is, you know, the use of capitals scheme of publication indicates a definition to me, Nick.
Which
It does,
document?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
1114.
1114. Christina?
Well, I think somewhere the
Right.
council does have a scheme of publication.
Right, so do we have a
I
list
think
of
there is-
definitions?
I think there is a written document.
Well, is there a list of
I
definitions?
doubt it.
Well, you know,
Yes,
Christian,
The-
yes.
Scheme of publication is an ICO requirement, and I have tried looking for it.
ICO.
Yeah.
Information Commissioners,
Oh,
the
sorry.
Office of the Information Commissioner, and I have tried looking for it at STC, and the nearest I can identify to it is on the website, basically the Freedom of Information Act page, which lists various documents, but I have tried looking for the specific scheme of publication and I have not been able to find that.
and I haven't been able to find it either.
So
There
this,
should be one.
right.
It's a legal requirement.
Yes.
it was the Information Commission Officer, was it?
Yes, commissioners.
The ICO,
Information Commissioner's Office.
yeah, or Well, they call it the ICO, but I think in other words they say the Office of the Information Commissioner.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think we can get away with
I
it.
think you can use either of those.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's the office.
Right. I have to say I'm flummoxed by 115. Have we finished with 114?
Defines policies on certain matters. Each
Yeah.
shall have the same effect as these standing orders, except in
The ICO actually has a template for it.
Hmm?
The ICO provides a template for the scheme of publication.
Yes, I think there is one.
There is, it's on their website.
Yeah.
I've looked at this thing.
Okay. Thank you. Have we finished with 114? 115? So,
Yeah.
reading this, it sort of says, if we don't agree with a change to the standing orders take precedence. Is that right?
No, I think it means if there's a
No.
inconsistency, I would
If
call
there
it.
is-
ambiguity.
If there's an inconsistency,
Yeah,
the standing
the
orders
standing
will
orders take
will take
precedence.
precedence.
Right.
Yes.
So, except where there is an ambiguity in the terms of those policies or in the words of those policies.
Rather than disagreement, is
Yeah,
ambiguity.
conflict or, it's.
So I'm assuming that this isn't written in a way that has to be stuck to, and if it isn't, is there a way that we can make it more readable?
Yeah, by all means.
Exactly.
By all means.
I think, except where there is ambiguity or conflict. If we say ambiguity or conflict,
Yeah.
Prefer inconsistency.
Inconsistency.
Look.
Yes.
Inconsistency.
From time to time, so there's no value to where the council defines policies.
okay. All right. Have we finished with that page?
So what I'm saying, what it's reading now is,
Well, do you need from time to time?
I've got rid of that, don't worry Martin, I've just seen that. It's superfluous.
If the council defines a policy which appears to be in
It doesn't even use
ambiguous or in
So
conflict,
what Peter has done is where the council defines policies on certain matters.
okay.
That's clear?
these shall have the same effect as these standing orders, except where there is ambiguity, inconsistencies or conflict between those policies, these standing orders shall take precedence.
Happy with that?
I think you could even make it shorter.
Just take.
Where the council defines policies on certain matters, where there is ambiguity, inconsistencies or conflict between those policies and the standing orders shall take precedence. I think it just needs, that's what we're trying to say.
That's nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You've done this before.
Unfortunately, yes. For 40 years.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing the experience we bring, folks.
Oh, it's gone down to 2 lines now.
That's the repeat of. That's the repeat of 115,
Right.
211.
Yeah. It's just-
Right, so I've got it down to where the council defined policies, should there be any ambiguity or inconsistencies or conflict between those policies, these standing orders shall take precedence.
Yep, that sounds.
6 lines down to 2. 6 lines originally down to 2.
Thank you.
We've reduced the amount of wordage.
Who wrote Ernest Gower's The Complete Plain Words?
Yes.
An ancient text, but very useful. Can we move on to page 5?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you just
The
give me
first one,
Sorry,
211.
I'm sorry.
No,
I just want to,
Save. You want to save it too?
that's it.
Let's get it right.
211 is a repeat of 115.
So,
Right, can I just sort of step and go back just to make sure that which of the statutory
You haven't come across any yet. Put it in bold.
They're in bold on starting at 221, I think. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
211 should be deleted. It's a repeat of 115.
Right. And we've just amended that anyway.
Yeah.
So 211 delete.
Okay, done.
Okay.
Sorry, just to interject, are we saving this under version control? So that we're moving on from the original, which would be 0.1, I would have thought. Sorry, I'm just being pedantic now, just to make sure that we know.
Well, I've saved this as draft Sandwich Town Council Standing Orders Working Group version 1.
Fine.
Right.
So we'll
Okay,
get
that's-
working group version 2 because it's got draft at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a draft version 1 of the draft.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
the
you.
next version will be version 2
Version
Yes.
2.
until we actually get,
1.0.
in my mind, to the Sandwich version 1.0. Yeah,
Okay.
with a
No, you're right to raise the point, and thank you. And it's also right we have this proper document control, because if we don't do it, we're going to look a bit silly.
yeah.
So 212, a chair of council. Is it worth saying that some people may say, well, what do we mean by chair of council? The conventional term that is used in Sandwich is certainly a mayor. Do we need to specify the mayor is the chair of the council? And should we do that? Otherwise, I don't think there's any references to the mayor, Nick, unless...
The Local Government Act refers to chair and vice chair.
Yes.
It doesn't refer to mayor, deputy mayor. Not all parish
No,
councils have mayors.
Yeah.
Right.
A mayor is purely an internal thing within the council.
But I
Thank
think it's
you.
a valid point in the sense that for Sandwich,
It
there is an automatic.
It may well be worth stating here, because the chair of the council shall be the mayor, and
Yeah.
the deputy
I
chair
agree.
shall be the deputy.
I think that's a good way to summarise it.
Yeah.
You happy with that?
Yeah, well, under 212, the chair of the council is elected by members of the town council, so maybe that's the place to put it in,
Yes.
is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And shall be called the mayor.
Ah.
It's, I would say it's the normal practice for the mayor to chair the council or vice versa. Normal practice for the chair to be mayor.
So
I'm just trying to think how it works because
the chair of the council. So it's something along the lines. The chair of the council is a role performed by the mayor. So it's something along those lines, joining the two together.
I'd say the other way round. I'd say the chair performs the role of the
Yeah.
mayor because it's the chair that has the legal standing,
Yeah.
whereas the,
Well, the role of the chair is performed by the mayor.
Yes.
no, the chair
No, actually.
performs the role of the mayor.
No, but we had 2 separate elections.
We did this year.
We did elect a chair.
The chair of the council is elected at the annual
General meeting.
At the annual meeting of the council
the annual meeting of the council.
is the chair.
The chair. The mayor is then elected at a separate mayor-making meeting. He's elected then the mayor is appointed by a separate meeting of the council.
Yeah.
So does that mean in theory you could have a person who's the chair of the council who is different from the mayor?
I did raise this actually a couple of weeks ago.
In theory, you could.
And I think in some large councils that you have a mayor
Oh,
who is not...
definitely. I mean, district councils separate the rule of mayor from leader of the council. They do.
Yes, it was leader complicates.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, but you can't do that. You can't do that.
I think we should just.
Under local government
Yeah,
act.
Peter's got a suggestion here, folks.
The chair of the council is elected by members of the town council at the annual general meeting of the Sandwich Town Council.
Annual town council.
At the annual meeting of the council.
At the annual meeting of
Meeting.
the council.
There's no general though.
No,
No,
the actual
no.
statutory
The
term,
annual
annual meeting of the
Annual
council.
meeting of the council. Right. Then how is it taken?
So how do then we hook in the mayor's responsibility to do this? So is it about the
Conventionally, the mayor the mayor acts as chair of the council. And
Well,
just say conventionally, doesn't
It
it?
depends if the voting at the mayor making has validity or not, because if it does, then that is what creates the mayor.
I think maybe it's not mentioned.
I think we're better not to mention it, because
Okay.
the mayor is a purely ceremonial.
The key role is being the chair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
And the legislation talks about chair.
I think that people who are not involved in the detail will be surprised there is no reference to a mayor. I think you may need to put something the mayor has, these aren't the words, but Sandwich Town Council
It is expected, or
it is expected, or it is the convention that Sandwich Town Council is a mayor
Yeah.
who may be the chair of the council. That's too convoluted.
Yeah, the two roles are normally fulfilled by the same person.
Yeah, it is expected.
It is
The
expected.
role-
Because they are separate, in fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, as
I didn't
Christina
realise that.
points out, they're elected in a different format, but it's just that normally in Sandwich, we expect these to be the same, the roles to be fulfilled by the same person.
This is going to take a time.
But, I mean, I think it is important for posterity and for the public to say what has to be done and what can be done and what needs to be done. It might be an option for the town in future to have separate people. I don't know.
I don't think the Local Government Act allows it. I'm sure the Local Government Act somewhere says the mayor shall be the chair of the council.
I'm trying to think
Peter, you.
But
Sorry
it
to
is
interrupt.
expected within Sandwich, the roles of the chair of the council and the mayor will be fulfilled by the same person.
something like that.
Yes.
I don't think in Ramsgate, I don't think Ramsgate chairs the council.
Because it's a lady at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ramsgate.
But they have a separate mayor and a separate chair.
Something.
Yes.
You think they have a separate mayor from the chair?
I think she does.
Well,
Okay,
So
well, let's
leave it at that.
let's not labour too much on it.
No.
Right, okay, the chair of the, 214, no problem there, because we've defined that the mayor is frequently the chair, so that's all right.
The chair cannot take decisions or actions as an individual.
Right. Chair.
I know what it means.
What are you looking at? Sorry, which one did you say?
Look at it's the mayor right there.
One meeting, folks, please.
On C, D,
215D.
D, work with the town clerk to ensure the strategic direction and operational of the council are working effect and the operations.
So could I just, there's a prior question, this section 2.1.4, is this a given or is this flexible in terms of its content? Nick, in terms of its drafting? Have we got the opportunity to recast some of this?
Yes, certainly. It's not statutory.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a much better way of saying it. So I'm just looking at B, C, and possibly D. There's a lot of repetition. Is there any way of making it simpler? So, for example, at B it says to develop and propose a strategic direction.
You could take 214 out completely. It doesn't really add. I don't think it really adds anything.
That's even more radical.
I think, I prefer to take it out.
Yes, good.
Take it out, unless we have a megalomaniac in charge who decides that he or she is going to.
Cannot speak.
I think
on behalf of the council.
I think it's quite a good point to make that the chair of the council has no direct powers or privileges
Yes.
beyond those of an ordinary councillor.
Yep.
Let's leave it at that and take the
Perhaps you
sentence.
should take the second sentence out,
Yeah.
which really doesn't add much to it.
Yeah.
Fine, that's good.
Because if he's got no powers or privileges beyond those of an ordinary council, then he can't take any decisions or
That's-
action.
Okay.
Tack it onto 2 or 3.
The deciding vote is the
What?
only. The deciding vote in the case of a draw is the only privilege I can think of.
Yeah.
Does that appear in 2.1.4?
Hmm?
The deciding vote, is it in 2.1?
It will be somewhere there, I'm sure.
What will?
The deciding vote.
Casting vote.
Oh,
The
yes.
casting
Oh,
vote,
yeah,
yeah.
that comes further on.
Yeah.
That comes on.
So we're agreeing 2.1.4, all of that section can be removed. Is that right?
No, I think leave the first sentence, but take out the second sentence.
That's 2.1.3.
No. The 2.1.4, as I understand, perhaps
So
should
you've
now.
renumbered them, of course.
Oh yes,
Yes,
because
that's
we've
why,
taken.
that's why you're talking about
Yeah.
new.
Yeah, because we've taken.
Oh, you're right.
First one.
Version control.
2.1.1 came out. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so we are now on 2.1.4, which used to be called 2.1.5.
Yes,
Right.
right.
Okay.
It's a lot of repetition.
There is. That was where I started from.
There is
A lot of discussions with the.
There's a lot of stuff around the strategic direction, and in some breath it's saying will, and in some ways it won't as a role. So it's making it simpler to
It's the
understand.
council that sets the direction.
I would have thought so.
So B is really not. We're not very happy with B.
So A's fine. So
A.
again,
Yes.
if we agree we're going to leave some of this in, if we're going to agree that.
Yeah, but you know, for
Yeah.
me, it doesn't. This list is nowhere near all of the things that we expect the chair or the mayor to fulfil.
Yeah.
And perform. So, you know, it either wants to be right or
Or
not
delete.
there at all. It
Yeah.
doesn't want to be a halfway house.
I know.
Nick, you've put a lot of work into this. Are many of these issues covered elsewhere under 2.1.51?
I don't think they are.
And this is almost a sort of
It's one
a
simple
job description.
Hmm?
Well, you
Well,
see,
it's one simple thing. Firstly, I don't think it's the chair and the town clerk together who set the strategic
No.
direction.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's
for the
probably
full
right.
council to set
I agree.
strategic direction.
I agree.
Secondly, for me, it's a simple duty of the chair to approve and issue the agenda before
Yes.
council meetings, which is really included in
But
chairing.
bear in mind, Peter's suggestion when we looked in these things was that we have really delegated responsibilities under C3, elected councillors. It really is the mayor's things.
that's where you would put all of the things we would expect the mayor to do, whether it's to attend ceremonial events with other councils or whether it's to, you know, provide a casting vote or whatever. It should all just be in that one place.
In this document here, there's what you might almost call the role and responsibilities of, rather than job descriptions, of the mayor and of individual councillors. I think that, strictly speaking, that's probably a better place to put it.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
So is there anything here that we still would wish to retain, or we delete the whole of 2.1.5, which is now renumbered 2.1.4? I think this is much more about behaviours and roles rather than. Right, may I make a proposal then? We delete the existing 2.1.5
Yeah.
with the caveat that somebody has a look at it and make sure that there's nothing
Yes.
mandatory or there. Nick, could you look at that, see if there's anything mandatory?
Yes. Yes.
But we delete the whole of 2.1.
I think you're right.
Just changing the subject slightly, but not changing it. Our terms of reference for committees, the existing terms of reference for committees, have got a section which says duties of the mayor and deputy mayor. The mayor and deputy mayor will be elected at the annual mayor-making meeting of the town council in May. The mayor will have the following duties, with the deputy mayor deputising as required. 1. To chair all meetings of the council.
Yeah.
To be the civic figurehead of the town. To attend ceremonial events on behalf of Stanley Town Council. Now probably, that's all, if you just put that in here.
Yes, I agree.
You've
Lift it and move it up.
You've got the question about who is the mayor, this is answered, and what's the mayor's eldest on?
Yes.
But the mayor does work.
Sorry, Nick,
It's
what
just
does
the mayor will chair the meeting of the council and that's what he does.
Yes.
Separate job.
Nick, for the, repeat.
The mayor will chair the meetings of the full council.
The mayor will,
Chair the meetings of the full council, not the committees, is it?
no, it
No.
just says the chair all meetings of the council.
This is
The
Nick.
full
Right.
council.
This is Nick.
What page is that on?
The statute, is that on
It's on
the,
page 3 of the terms of reference for committees and schedule of delegations.
I think you're right, Christine. I think there's a little bit of sharpening up of that because they will not chair all meetings. We know that, so we just need to tighten that
Okay.
a little bit.
But I think it's important to specify for the council because I had a experience in my last council where the chair thought he could chair all the committees because he was present.
ah,
And that is the risk of
Yeah. So
leaving it
we are,
ambiguous.
Martin, we're going to, I think, lift it, move it up front to where that section two,
Yeah.
but also make it more specific.
excellent. Okay.
But let's not rush on because Peter's doing it. So.
John's when you're ready, Peter. Sorry about the background noise, folks, but we can do nothing about it.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're clear what I've done is I've lifted that section from the other document, I've just put it in, but the remainder of that section, just for the time being, I've just
Yeah.
struck through it, I haven't deleted it altogether,
Struck through
so.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
No, I will check that nothing in there was really statutory, that should be.
Okay. Right.
Speeding on now, aren't we?
Original version 216 doesn't strike me as being controversial at all. That's
The
there.
council will appoint the director,
Councillor elect.
elect 216.
Which was there.
The elect the director. And so that act, that will go past the local government.
Right, okay, it's going
Because it needs to be said to you.
That colours the.
Well, that covers it.
216.
217 covers the point we took out earlier,
Yes.
which is fine.
Sorry, so you're saying we took the point out earlier, so should we take
No,
this
I think
point
I
out?
should leave that
No,
in, it's
no,
just
I
a
think-
statement, just a statement,
I think
it's a statement of fact.
That is the legal,
It was redundant earlier on because
Yeah.
it's
but
covered.
it is not redundant
Yeah.
here. This 217 stays.
Yeah.
Statutory provisions. Right. These we kept, so
221,
2, 2,
2
3,
are all statutory provisions.
Yeah.
the whole of it is statutory. is it?
Yeah.
It's in bold and it's
Right,
as
fine.
stated. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I'd ask you not to alter unless you really
No.
feel there's something.
Or a quick spell in Maidstone prison,
Oh yeah, that was.
Right. So we move on to 2.3.
Well, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, the
That-
chair
that's-
is present shall preside, if the chair is absent, the vice chair.
No, but the
presides.
question was what meetings are covered. This is where we had this dispute with you.
Yeah, so if you go
Chair.
back
In
up.
2 to,
So
talking just about
Yeah,
2 to 6.
yeah, well, that's
The
what-
chair, if present, shall preside at a meeting.
Well, that's what the act
But
says.
Is that the
it's
act?
intended to cover full
All right, no,
council meetings.
yes, no, you're right, Martin. So, so it's not to chair all meetings of the council. It's all meetings
Of the full council.
Can we alter this, Nick, out with a
Well, I
point?
think you can,
Yes.
I think you can,
2
as
to
long as you
6.
don't, as long as you don't change the effect of it.
Yeah.
the chair, if present, preside at full meetings of the council.
You could just insert where it says a meeting of the full council. You could just insert the words of the full council. So you're not changing. You're just adding.
No, I would say, I mean, add words which explain rather than change the meaning of it.
Yeah.
Or even
Right.
chair.
And then if the chair is absent from such a meeting, the vice chair shall preside.
Such.
It's done.
Okay,
If the chair is absent.
right. Moving on.
Okay, proper
2, 1,
officer.
3. Right, will generally be known
Is there any reason why it wouldn't be shall be known as? Do use of generally, are we happy to remove the word?
Well, I
generally?
think they put that in because the town clerk was known as the chief executive until recently.
Well, now we've,
I would like to take out the word
yes,
generally.
I agree.
Right,
And
okay.
It's
make
been
it specific.
cleaned up, yeah.
2, 3, 1, delete, generally.
Generally,
Yes, indeed, that.
Right, so this is my question about the proper officer. We're saying 232 covers that. Any staff member nominated will undertake the role of the town clerk during the town clerk's absence. Right.
Nominated by the council or the town clerk. If the town clerk, we don't,
We don't want it all coming to the
I'm
council.
a bit surprised by this because
Yes.
I thought an interim town clerk had to be approved by full council.
Well, we did approve the interim town clerk, did we not?
You
During
can
the town clerk's absence.
You
It's-
can
it's
change
the
this
temporary,
because it's
temporary
not bold.
absence.
Yes,
So
exactly. So what do we want to say here?
What on 232?
Yes.
Another staff nominated by the council
Yeah.
will undertake the role of the town clerk. I personally wouldn't delegate that to the proper officer. I'd keep that as the council. Usually, a small council like this, you would want to keep it pretty tight.
Yeah.
It's not like some place like Liverpool or Manchester where you've got a huge organisation and you'd want to do it to the town clerk there. Christina?
you could say, because this doesn't recognise the responsible finance officer, you could build in that the deputy for the town clerk might be
Yeah.
the responsible finance officer, given that that is, I think, also a proper officer role.
And it is what's happening as well.
And
to
it
an
is what's
extent.
happening.
It is, but I thought
Unless you
that
don't want it.
one of the things that the council will need to do in the near future is review its whole staffing structure.
Yeah.
And therefore I'd be reluctant to mention a specific role.
Right.
We may well end up with the present structure, or certainly an RFO.
So just to challenge that little bit here, we are where we are today.
Yes.
The structure review is going to happen, but it may take a matter of weeks or months to
Yes.
complete. But the town clerk might be absent. So do we need them to stay here saying during periods of the town clerk's absence, this role will normally be performed by?
I think, sorry, I think we need to be clear about two specific kinds of absence.
Yes.
One is a temporary absence of the
Yeah.
town clerk,
Yeah.
illness or something,
Yes.
and the other is where there is no town clerk in post.
Yes.
In the
Yeah.
former case, you could nominate somebody
Yes.
on
That was my point.
a
Yeah.
case-by-case basis. I would think we would need to say somebody suitably qualified, but in the latter case, you have to appoint an interim, I think. And I think an interim town clerk has to be approved by the council.
Yes.
Yeah,
Agree.
well,
Yeah.
I feel that this, as it's drafted, is impractical because
Yeah.
if somebody goes off sick for the day,
Yeah.
we've got to have an emergency council
Yeah.
meeting to nominate somebody to carry out the
We don't
role.
want that.
Yeah.
So we don't want that. Then, if our town clerk is going away for 2 or 3 weeks or is on
Mhm.
prolonged sickness,
Mhm.
that's a different thing, or if they resign. So I think that I agree with you, Martin, there's certainly 2 and maybe, 3 situations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we want to redraft this then?
Yeah. But this is this is NALC's wording, because
Right.
they've also, NALC have also, we may have got it later, which says the council shall appoint appropriate staff members to undertake the work of the responsible finance officer when the responsible finance officer is absent. Again, that is confusing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't say
No.
that's what NALC's model has.
Right.
At least it says appropriate.
That's appropriate. Yes.
Nowadays, I would
Well,
say you don't want
Would
anybody
it be
clocking a
something
meeting.
along the lines of the council will nominate other roles such as the RFO and define who will undertake the role of the town clerk during the town clerk's absence?
So I suppose the thing is, what are we trying to say? So I think what we're trying to pick up on in terms of what Peter's saying, what we want to have business continuity.
Yes.
Okay? And business continuity does not need to necessarily be put in front of a council meeting should we know there's planned leave of a town clerk,
Yes.
and there's also unexpected leave. We would expect somebody suitably within the hierarchy to pick up that responsibility without having to come to a town council meeting. That's my personal view. Martin's point about actually if the interim clerk disappears, or the town clerk disappears, then I think we need to be clear about that does come to the town council. So if they resign or whatever, so it's distinguishing those two things.
So I think that I'll just try and craft some words in a minute, but what I was going to say, in the event of a short-term absence, you know, the mayor or deputy mayor can agree that the role can be fulfilled by another responsible person. In the event of a prolonged absence through illness or resignation, you know, an interim town clerk can be appointed by only by the council.
Shall we leave that with you? Folks, can I just draw our attention, it is now 20
Yeah,
past.
sounds good.
I do think that there is specifically another item on the agenda we should look at, which is propose another meeting, bearing in mind that we have to give notice and everything else. I'd like to make sure we do that before things like, you know, people have to go. We've already identified 2 who have to leave at 1:30.
So I agree.
I think unfortunately the 5th and 6th, that's the Monday and the Tuesday of next week, are not good for me.
Let's go later.
I'm away 8th and
I'm
9th.
aware of the 5th. I'm aware of the 5th and the 6th.
Sorry, 5th and 6th, sorry, the Monday and the Tuesday are not good for me.
So why don't we pitch, sorry, if it's okay with everybody, what the Thursday, will we come together? Thursday next week?
I think
Thursday.
I'm available Thursday morning.
I think I'm as well.
Thursday next week.
That date would be the
8th.
I'll have to confirm that.
I'll have to confirm, but I
It's
think
my
I'm aware.
birthday on the 9th.
Thursday.
My wife is over there.
Thursday is good for me.
What day it is?
Thursday the 8th, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thursday the 8th.
10 o'clock.
Sorry,
I can do from 10 o'clock.
We could do 10 till 12?
10 till 12?
10?
Till 12?
Yeah.
10 o'clock till 12.
Okay.
I think we've got a process now. We had to do all that talking around it, but actually I think we're now into the mechanistic
Yeah.
process and
No,
we'll
this
just
is-
carry on next
Yeah.
time.
Fine for me.
Yeah?
But I think it would be helpful if we all went through this ourselves,
Yes.
so we came back with
But yeah,
with
But-
comments on it.
Yeah.
because-
I see
But I
nothing
would
wrong with
suggest-
everyone chipping in. I see nothing wrong with everyone
Yeah.
chipping in with track changes.
Yeah.
I think we need to be perhaps guided by Peter. If we're trying to have document control, we just need to be
Yeah.
careful that we don't get them all mixed up.
Yeah.
Peter, would you have any recommendations? Are you happy that we do, you know, sort of track changes NP, track changes NG, track changes IHB, to bring them all together? Because I just do not want them mixed up.
No, we don't
This
want-
is solid
or
gold.
do you want us just to go through them?
I think if everybody has them and we come to,
I
because
think
this is supposed to be a working group,
Yeah.
you know, and we actually do the
we all
work
mark up on
in
it.
the group.
And
Does
then-
it help if we put them in the form of comments rather than track changes?
Well, I don't want to be,
No.
you know,
No, I
here
think- I
with
think
7
that-
documents
I think
open
that
and trying
that's-
to
Let's
jump.
do it in the round.
Let's chuck it in the
People
round.
can bring their
Then
own
when we
comments.
agree them, then we pass them on to Peter.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Okay.
that's
In the
what we'll do
round.
that.
So what do we send them to people?
No, circulate amongst ourselves.
Yeah, just go through this and make your own comments on it.
And bring them to the
And
next
then bring them to
working
the next meeting and then go through. the-
Oh, I see.
Okay,
I
okay,
think
bring
that's
them to the next
that's the
meeting.
most effective way of doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're happy with that, that doesn't interfere with, because obviously you're doing a lot of work just now on this.
Well, you know, I'm just working through it. No,
Yeah.
no big shakes, you know. I'm not looking for a box of
No.
heroes or something.
Hang on a minute, have you know the council's expenses policy?
You know, but it's just easier if
Yes, we're
Yeah,
one.
if it's, and if somebody's got a lot of comments, as you say, Martin, I can mark it up to say,
Yeah.
you know, 233, I can just put a note on, see comment from Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can go through the document with one other document open, and that way I won't
Right.
get confused.
So the conclusion is that we each look at this, mark it up under our own names, and circulate those comments to.
No,
or just send
I
to.
think
I
we
would
just
rather
come
we
to the
came
meeting.
to the meeting with our own comments.
Come-
this is working well.
Yes.
Yeah, it is working
Peter's
well.
holding the pen. Let's just feed
Yeah, we
in
go
as we
through
go
them
through the
and then-
documents
yeah.
here
Yeah.
next
All
week.
right.
That is the most effective way of
Yeah.
doing these.
I don't want Peter having to
documents.
try and assimilate different comments.
That was my worry,
Otherwise, you get it gets too difficult.
and then something slips between the cracks.
Yeah, especially when I arrive late.
Great stuff.
So can I just do a temperature check in terms of we have a aim to get a product that goes to the town council? Are we okay in terms of timescales?
If we could, I did have a look this morning, and
The next town meeting is the 31st of
No, I think it's earlier than that.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
no, the 20.
26?
26.
Or is it after that?
It's
the
the 26th.
26th.
The
Yeah.
last Monday.
26
So
26th,
if we have a meeting on the
next week.
8th,
And another one.
we could have another one for the sake of argument on the 15th. I think beyond that, you'd be very tight for time unless you did the
Yeah.
Monday or the Tuesday, because the town clerk needs to have
Yeah.
the documents available for that person's use no later than the 22nd, I think.
So that, in effect, where are we as percentage in terms of progress today? I know today's been skewed by the general conversation. If we've got 2 more meetings, do we feel?
Will we concentrate purely on this? I think
I
we
think
should get there.
we've set principles, we've set fairly good objectives.
Yeah.
I would say that in terms of the actual documents, not more than about 10 to 15%. But once you've got the clarity about your objectives, you can then rattle on. I mean,
Yeah.
do others feel similar?
Yeah, and we can check again at the end of the next meeting.
Yeah.
Peter, you look a little
Yeah,
sceptical.
no, I'm just thinking that, you know, we're on, what day is it today? Tuesday today, and we're not going to meet till next Thursday. I know people are going to do a bit of homework, but I'm just wondering if in order to really kind of crack on, if it would be useful if, you know, a couple of us were to meet informally in between time to try and make it happen, or whether, you know, we're happy just to stick with, because, you know, we're not going to do anything on it for 10 days effectively, other than everybody just kind of do their homework, which is going to take an hour or so.
I think the only issue for me is involvement in, we're going to definitely be having a Richborough discussion. I've definitely got as you have the IT and digital working group, so it's just about not overburdening us. Could I suggest that's a sensible approach, Peter? If we come back next week, see how much progress we make in that meeting, and then we can then drop in,
Okay, all right.
you know,
Think about it
acceleration
next time.
beyond that. If people are okay with that, unless somebody's really biting at a bit to do something between now and next Thursday.
All right. Okay, so in the interim time, I will distribute this document
Yeah.
to you
Yeah.
all in track changes mode.
That's excellent, and I'll write up some notes here, just some summary notes. Nick, you said you would just double check there was nothing missing
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
The others, and we will all have a look at
Our homework.
Yes.
and do our homework on it. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, folks. Well, thank you very much for coming. Christina, also thank you for your
Thank you.
helpful contributions.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, very useful. We've got a time and a date for next meeting. I'll ask the town clerk tomorrow to set it all up and issue the appropriate notice.
Yeah.
And we'll take it from there. The agenda is just going to be carry on with this. Just, I
Yes.
don't think we need anything more formal than that.
Carry on regardless. Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, and I
Perhaps
think,
not the right word.
and I think it would be useful if we can check with the town clerk to see if we could get a large TV working so that everybody can actually see the
Screen,
document
yeah,
or a
okay.
projector.
Okay, screw
And I'll do that.
Will you do that? Thank you. That's great. Right, folks. I think it's been a very productive meeting. It's hard work, but I think we are slowly getting there.
Yeah.